At just 12 years old, Henry John Hines, a young boy from a small town in Pennsylvania, set out on a path that would lead him to build one of the most iconic food brands in the world. Born in 1844 in Shopsburg, Pennsylvania, Henry was the third of 9 children in a family that valued hard work, discipline, and self-reliance. His parents, German immigrants, lived near the Allegheny River, where his mother maintained a large garden. From a young age, Henry was expected to contribute to the family's survival, and he learned valuable lessons in the garden that would serve him throughout his life. The Hines family's garden was a crucial source of food and modest income. Henry's mother grew onions, beans, cabbage, cucumbers, and, most notably, horseradish, a pungent root that thrived in the region's soil. By the age of 8, Henry was managing his own small rows of plants in the garden. He learned how to plant, harvest, and process the horseradish, grinding it fresh and sealing it in waxed glass jars. As he worked alongside his mother, Henry's discipline and attention to detail stood out. He didn't just plant crops. He started to apply early forms of inventory control, product presentation, and customer delivery. This was more than a hobby for Henry. By 12, he had developed a system for growing, processing, and selling food. He tracked his plantings and harvests, organized deliveries, and kept careful ledgers. His horseradish was sold in clear glass jars, which allowed customers to see the quality of the product, something competitors often ignored. As his customer base grew, Henry's reputation for consistency and quality took root. By the time he reached his teenage years, he wasn't just a young boy working in the garden, he was a budding entrepreneur. The first business venture and setback by 1856, at just 12 years old, Henry took a bold step toward building a business. With his parents' permission, he leased 3/4 of an acre of land behind their home in Shopsburg. Using his savings, Henry purchased a horse and a cart. His primary crop was horseradish, but he also grew other vegetables. His daily routine was intense. After completing his schoolwork, he managed the crops, prepared the jars, and delivered his products to customers. The effort was grueling, but Henry's dedication and discipline allowed him to build a reputation for quality and dependability. Henry's horseradish, packed in clear glass jars and sealed with wax, became known as Hines's white root. His polite demeanor, reliable delivery, and meticulous records earned him a loyal customer base. His reputation spread beyond individual households, and local restaurants began ordering his product regularly. As he expanded, Henry reinvested his profits into better tools and higher quality glass containers. By the time he was 14, Henry had developed a deep understanding of the food business, from production to customer relations. However, his early success was short-lived. In 1869, at the age of 25, Henry entered a formal partnership with a friend named Clarence Noble, launching a new venture called Hines & Noble. Their goal was to take their horseradish to a larger market. They bottled it in clear glass containers, which allowed customers to inspect the product before purchasing. This emphasis on transparency and cleanliness helped build trust, especially in an era when food safety standards were weak and many companies diluted or tainted their products. The business expanded quickly across Pittsburgh and neighboring towns. But in 1873, the Panic of 1873 hit the United States, causing widespread economic collapse. Railroads defaulted, banks failed, and consumer spending plummeted. Hines & Noble, which had taken on credit to expand, found itself overextended. Sales dropped sharply, debts mounted, and the company was forced into bankruptcy in 1875. Henry sold his home and used his personal funds to cover the company's obligations. Despite this setback, Henry refused to give up. The collapse wasn't due to a flawed product or process. It was simply bad timing. Henry held on to his ledgers and production notes, knowing that the method he had developed could work. Determined to rebuild, he started a smaller, leaner company with the same core values. This time, he was ready to scale even further, and he knew his next venture would not only succeed, it would redefine the food industry. The birth of ketchup, in 1876, Henry Hines, alongside his brother John and cousin Frederick, founded a new company, F&J Hines. They returned to bottling horseradish, the same method that had helped build their earlier business. They used transparent glass jars, hand-labeled them, and ensured a high level of quality control. This new venture was more cautious, but Henry was also quietly working on an innovation that would change the food industry: ketchup. At this point, horseradish remained the company's primary product, but Henry saw an opportunity in ketchup. Drawing inspiration from imported recipes, he developed a tomato-based sauce. Henry began experimenting with the chemistry of spoilage, learning how acidity, sugar content, and temperature affected the shelf life of the product. He worked tirelessly to perfect the taste and stability of the ketchup without using artificial preservatives, which were common at the time. Henry's attention to detail and commitment to quality allowed him to refine the sauce, and soon it began gaining more attention than his horseradish. Unlike many competitors who used preservatives like sodium benzoate, Henry insisted on using fresh ingredients: distilled vinegar, tomatoes, and spices. His ketchup was free from chemical aftertastes and had a smoother consistency than other products on the market. Slowly, it gained a reputation for being the best-tasting ketchup available, and customers began to prefer it over other brands. From local staple to national icon, by the late 1880s, Henry Hines recognized the growing commercial potential of ketchup. While his company continued to offer horseradish and other products, ketchup became the focal point of his business strategy. At this time, Henry introduced standardized packaging and labeled his ketchup in slim, easy-to-handle bottles that were sterilized to maintain freshness during transport. In 1907, Heinz was producing over 12 million bottles of ketchup each year. The product quickly spread beyond the United States, reaching international markets in the United Kingdom, South America, Australia, and Japan. This expansion was the beginning of what would become a global brand. As Heinz continued to innovate, he recognized the importance of branding. He created unique, easy-to-read labels and standardized packaging across all his products. Retailers took notice, and soon Heinz Ketchup was available in grocery stores across the country. In a crowded market, Heinz stood out due to the consistency and quality of his products. The legend of 57, one of the most significant moves Henry Hines made in shaping his brand, was the introduction of the number 57. In 1896, while riding an elevated train in New York City, Henry saw an advertisement for a shoe company that promoted 21 styles. The precision of the number stuck with him, and he decided to use a similar strategy to promote his ketchup. Although Heinz was already selling over 60 different food products, he decided to promote his brand using the number 57. It wasn't based on product count, but was meant to create a memorable, catchy identity for the company. The number 5 was Henry's lucky number, and 7 was his wife Sarah's favorite number. Together, they formed a perfect balance. The number 57 was simple, easy to remember, and stood out in advertisements and signage. It soon became synonymous with the brand and symbolized quality and trust. A legacy of trust and quality by the early 1900s, Henry Hines had not only built a food empire, but also established a model for how factories should operate. His main plant in Pittsburgh was ahead of its time. It was well lit, clean, and hygienic, with floors scrubbed daily. Visitors often commented on the distinct smell of fresh produce and cooked tomatoes, a stark contrast to the odor of decay that characterized many industrial buildings of the era. Heinz implemented strict hygiene standards, provided uniforms for all workers, and ensured that employees were treated fairly. The company offered education programs for workers' children and even provided meals in company dining areas. This commitment to cleanliness, fairness, and employee welfare helped Heinz build public trust. Heinz was also a supporter of food safety reform. He was one of the key industrial figures who supported the passage of the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act, which set stricter standards for food labeling and production practices. Henry's focus on transparency and quality became a hallmark of the Heinz brand, and this reputation helped the company weather the challenges of the 20th century. Global expansion and continued success. Henry Hines passed away in 1919, but by that time, his company had already become a global brand. The principles he set in place, transparency, quality, and consumer trust, continued to guide the company through decades of expansion. Heinz products were available in over 200 countries, and by the mid-20th century, the company had become a household name. In the 1980s and 1990s, Heinz adapted to changing markets by focusing on efficiency and innovation. It introduced new packaging techniques and expanded into new regions. The company's dominance in global markets continued to grow, and by the early 2000s, Heinz had a presence in over 50 countries, with annual revenue exceeding $4 billion. In 2013, Heinz was acquired by Berkshire Hathaway and 3G Capital for $23.3 billion, marking a new chapter in the company's history. In 2015, Heinz merged with Kraft Foods to form the Kraft Heinz Company, one of the largest multinational food companies in the world. Today, Kraft Heinz generates over $26 billion in annual revenue, and Heinz Ketchup remains one of the most recognizable products globally. A legacy that endures. What began as a small boy selling horseradish from a garden in Pennsylvania has transformed into a global empire. Henry Hines's legacy lives on in every bottle of ketchup sold around the world. His story is one of perseverance, innovation, and trust, proving that with the right principles and a commitment to quality, anything is possible. Today, Heinz Ketchup controls around 30% of the global ketchup market, and its influence continues to shape the food industry. The number 57, once a marketing gimmick, has become synonymous with excellence, a testament to Henry Hines's vision.